Jake Morrison stood in the communication room of the human ship Aurora's Dawn. His hands shook as he read the message from the Galactic Council. The words on the screen made his blood run cold. Captain Lisa Harper walked into the room. She saw Jake's pale face and knew something was very wrong. "What is it, Ambassador?" she asked. Jake turned the screen toward her. "They want us to surrender everything." The message was clear and simple. Humanity had to give up all their colonies outside the solar system. They had to let the Council control their military. They had to accept being treated like children forever. The Council gave Earth exactly 72 hours to agree. Lisa read the message twice. Her jaw tightened with anger. "They can't be serious." "They are," Jake said. "Look at who sent it." The message came from Veltar, a high-ranking member of the Zephyrian Empire. The Zephyrians controlled most of the Galactic Council. They thought they were better than everyone else, especially humans. Veltar's hologram appeared on the screen. He was tall and thin with blue skin and 4 arms. His voice was cold and arrogant. "Humans have expanded too quickly. Your technology grows too fast. You are a threat to galactic peace." Lisa wanted to punch something. "Threat to peace? We've never started a single war." The hologram continued. "This is not a negotiation. Accept our terms or face the consequences. You have 72 hours. The message ended. Jake sat down heavily in his chair. "Lisa, they have thousands of ships. We have maybe 300 total." "Numbers aren't everything," Lisa said, but she knew Jake was right. The Council's combined fleet was massive. They had ships from dozens of worlds. Humanity was still new to space travel compared to them. Back on Earth, President Connor Walsh was having the worst day of his life. He sat in the war room with his top advisors. The message from the Council played on the big screen for the 3rd time. Admiral Roy Bennett, head of the Terran Space Navy, looked grim. "Mr. President, we can't fight them head-on. They outnumber us 50-1. General Pete Morgan, who ran human intelligence, leaned forward. "Maybe we don't have to fight them head-on." President Walsh looked tired. "What do you mean, Pete?" "I mean, we're smarter than they think we are," Pete said. "They expect us to either surrender or charge at them like wild animals." "What if we do neither?" Dr. Helen Carter spoke up from her seat. She was the head of military research. "Mr. President, we have some projects they don't know about." "What kind of projects?" Walsh asked. Helen glanced at Pete. "Things that could change the game completely. But we need time to finish them." Admiral Bennett shook his head. "We don't have time. They want an answer in 3 days. Then we give them an answer," Pete said with a small smile. "Just not the one they expect." President Walsh looked around the room. These were good people. Smart people. People who had never let him down before. "What are you thinking, Pete?" "I'm thinking we tell them exactly what they want to hear," Pete said. "And then we show them why that was a mistake." On the other side of the galaxy, Veltar was meeting with other council leaders. They sat in a huge chamber made of crystal and gold. Representatives from dozens of worlds were present. "The humans will surrender," Veltar said confidently. "They are young and weak. They know they cannot win." Commander Zaktul from the hegemony nodded. "Our fleets are already moving into position. When they surrender, we will occupy their worlds immediately." "What if they refuse?" asked Ambassador Nira from the Trade Federation. Veltar's forearms spread wide. "Then we will destroy them. It will be quick. The galaxy will see what happens to those who challenge the Council." The other representatives murmured their agreement. None of them liked humans very much. Humans asked too many questions. They didn't follow the old ways. They created new technology instead of buying it from established powers. Worst of all, they treated all species as equals. Back on Earth, President Walsh made his decision. He looked at each person in the room. "Pete, I want you to coordinate with Helen. Get our people ready for whatever you're planning. Roy, start moving our ships like we're going to surrender, but make sure they can fight when the time comes." "What about the colonies?" Admiral Bennett asked. "We have millions of people out there. We protect them," Walsh said firmly. "All of them. No one gets left behind." Jake Morrison received new orders from Earth. He was to send a reply to the Council. The message was short and simple. Humanity would consider their terms. They needed a few more days to prepare for the transition. Veltar was pleased when he got the message. He called another meeting of the Council. As expected, the humans are weak. They beg for more time like frightened children. "Should we give it to them?" asked Commander Zaktul. "A few days won't matter. Veltar said. Let them have their time. It will make their surrender sweeter. On Mars, Dr. Helen Carter worked day and night in her secret laboratory. Project Nightfall was almost ready. It was based on human understanding of quantum physics. Other species thought humans were crazy for experimenting with such dangerous forces. That was about to be their biggest mistake. Captain Danny Brooks sat in his stealth ship Silent Thunder far from any inhabited world. His job was to watch Council ship movements. What he saw made him smile grimly. The Council fleets were spreading out across human space. They were confident and careless. Danny sent an encrypted message back to Earth. They're taking the bait, moving into position just like we wanted. President Walsh received the message in his office. He was alone except for his security chief. Through his window, he could see normal people going about their daily lives. They had no idea their world was about to change forever. His secretary knocked on the door. Mr. President, you have a call from the colony worlds. Walsh picked up the phone. Colonial governors from a dozen worlds were on the line. They all had the same question. What should they tell their people? Tell them to trust us, Walsh said. Tell them humanity has never backed down from a fight when we were in the right. Tell them we're not starting now. When the call ended, Walsh looked out his window again. In 3 days, the Council would expect humanity's surrender. Instead, they were going to get something very different. Something that would change the galaxy forever. The countdown had begun. 3 days passed quickly. The galaxy watched as humanity seemed to give up without a fight. Ships began leaving human colonies all across space. The Great Evacuation had started. Amy Phillips stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Colony. She was the colonial governor, and her heart was breaking as she watched ships take off every hour. To anyone watching, it looked like humanity was running away with their tails between their legs. But Amy knew better. She turned to her aide, Marcus Webb. How many ships have really left? She asked quietly. Marcus checked his tablet. 40% are actually evacuating civilians to the underground cities. The other 60% are cargo ships full of our new military equipment. They're heading to the hidden bases. Amy nodded. The plan was working perfectly. The Council's spy satellites could see ships leaving, but they couldn't see what was in them. They also couldn't see the massive underground cities that had been built in secret over the past 5 years. General Pete Morgan had planned this deception carefully. Every human colony had been building underground for years. Not just simple bunkers, but entire cities with farms, factories, and defense systems. The Council's scans couldn't detect them because they were too deep and too well shielded. On Earth, President Walsh watched the news reports. The galactic media was calling it the Great Human Retreat. Council representatives appeared on every channel, talking about how this proved humans were not ready for galactic civilization. Veltar gave a particularly smug interview. This shows the wisdom of the Council's decision. Humans are children who tried to play with adult toys. Now they return to their proper place. Walsh turned off the screen and smiled coldly. We'll see who the children are, he said to himself. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Captain Danny Brooks guided his ship Silent Thunder to a hidden base. What looked like an empty asteroid was actually a military facility. Dozens of human ships were docked inside, all invisible to Council scanners. Danny met with Admiral Roy Bennett, who had secretly traveled to the base. How are we looking, Admiral? Danny asked. Better than they think, Bennett replied. Our ships are in position all across human space. The Council fleets are spreading out to occupy our colonies. They think they're hunting scattered refugees. Danny grinned. They're about to learn why you don't hunt humans. Dr. Helen Carter was putting the final touches on Project Nightfall. Her laboratory on Mars was hidden deep underground. She had been working on this weapon for 3 years, but the Council didn't know it existed. The Nightfall system was based on quantum disruption technology. Other species thought quantum experiments were too dangerous. Humans thought they were the key to victory. Each Nightfall device could tear apart enemy ships at the molecular level. Helen's assistant, Rick Davis, brought her the latest test results. Doctor, all systems are green. We can activate the network whenever you give the word. Helen looked at the test data. 50 Nightfall platforms were hidden throughout human space. They looked like communication relays or mining equipment. The Council had ignored them completely. Send word to Earth, Helen said. We're ready. On the Council flagship Eternal Glory, Veltar was celebrating. His fleet had occupied 12 human colonies without firing a shot. The humans had run away so fast they left behind mining equipment, communication relays, and even some weapons. Commander Zach Toole joined Veltar on the bridge. The human fleet seems to be hiding in the outer systems. Should we pursue them? Let them hide, Veltar said. They are broken and scattered. In a few days we will round them up like lost pets. What Veltar didn't know was that the mining equipment his ships were ignoring were actually weapons. The communication relays were targeting systems. And the human fleet wasn't scattered at all. Captain Lisa Harper had taken the Aurora's Dawn to a hidden base in the Centauri system. Ambassador Jake Morrison was with her, but he wasn't planning any more diplomatic talks. Instead, he was helping coordinate the resistance. Jake, we're getting reports from all over human space, Lisa said. The Council fleets are exactly where Pete said they would be. Jake looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed Council ships spread across dozens of systems. They were guarding empty colonies and chasing ghosts. They really think we just gave up. Their mistake, Lisa said grimly. Meanwhile, the real human civilians were safe in their underground cities. Amy Phillips walked through the halls of New Geneva's hidden city. Families were living in comfortable apartments. Children played in parks built under tons of rock and metal. Farms provided fresh food. Factories built weapons and supplies. How long can we stay down here? Asked Dr. Sarah Martinez, the city's chief medical officer. As long as we need to, Amy replied. These cities were built to last for years if necessary. The Council will never find us down here. Above ground, Council soldiers walked through empty streets. They found abandoned buildings and empty warehouses. They had no idea that thousands of humans were living and working just a few hundred feet below their boots. General Pete Morgan was coordinating the entire operation from a secret bunker on Earth. His screen showed the positions of every Council ship and every hidden human base. The deception was working perfectly. Pete's aide, Colonel Barry Stone, brought him an urgent message. Sir, we're getting reports that some Council ships are heading for Earth itself. Pete's face hardened. How many ships? About 200. They want to establish a permanent occupation force, Pete thought for a moment. This was actually good news. The more Council ships that came to Earth, the more would be caught in the trap. Let them come. Just make sure our orbital defense platforms are ready. Sir, those platforms are disguised as communication satellites. The Council doesn't know their weapons. Perfect, Pete said. When this starts, I want every Council ship in the solar system to be destroyed in the first 5 minutes. President Walsh received hourly updates on the operation. So far, everything was going according to plan. The Council thought they had won an easy victory. They had no idea they had walked into the most elaborate trap in human history. Walsh's secretary brought him another message from the galactic media. They were calling for humanity to formally surrender and accept Council rule. Some were even suggesting that humans should be stripped of all their technology and forced to return to their home planet permanently. Walsh crumpled up the message and threw it away. We tried to be nice, he said. We tried to follow their rules and respect their authority. They chose to push us too far. In space, Captain Nina Scott was preparing her ship Defiance for battle. Her crew had spent weeks disguised as civilian refugees. Now they were moving into position near a major Council fleet. Nina's weapons officer, Lieutenant Mike Johnson, checked his systems. Captain, all Nightfall devices are online and waiting for the activation signal. How many Council ships are in range? Nina asked. About 50, ma'am. They think we're just another refugee ship. Nina smiled coldly. They're about to learn the difference between refugees and soldiers. The trap was set. Human ships were in position throughout the galaxy, disguised as fleeing civilians or hidden in secret bases. The Nightfall weapons were armed and ready. The Council fleets were scattered and overconfident. All that remained was to spring the trap. And that moment was coming very soon. The Council made their biggest mistake on the 4th day. They decided to land troops on Earth itself. Commander Alex Turner watched from Luna Base as Council transport ships entered Earth's atmosphere. His hands clenched into fists as he saw what came next. The Council soldiers didn't just occupy empty buildings. They gathered human civilians in the city squares. Veltar himself had come to Earth to oversee what he called the final lesson. In downtown New York, a group of protesters had gathered. They were ordinary people, teachers, shopkeepers, students. They held signs that said Earth for humans and we will not kneel. They weren't violent. They weren't even blocking traffic. They were just standing peacefully in the park. Veltar's soldiers surrounded them. The blue-skinned Zephyrian commander stepped forward. His forearms gestured dismissively at the crowd. "You will disperse immediately. The council now governs this world." An elderly man named George Baker stepped forward. He was a retired teacher who had lived in New York his whole life. "This is our home," he said quietly. "We have a right to be here." Veltar's eyes glowed with anger. "You have only the rights the council gives you." He nodded to his soldiers. What happened next was broadcast live across the galaxy. The council wanted other species to see their power. Instead, they showed the galaxy their true nature. The soldiers opened fire on the unarmed protesters. George Baker fell first, then the teacher standing next to him, then the young student with the homemade sign. Within seconds, 37 innocent people lay dead in the park. Veltar spoke into the camera. "This is what happens to those who defy the council. Let this be a lesson to all humans." At Luna Base, Alex Turner watched the broadcast with tears of rage in his eyes. Around him, his crew stood in stunned silence. These weren't soldiers who had died. They were just people who wanted to remain free. Alex's communication officer, Lieutenant Kate Wilson, received an urgent message from Earth. Her voice shook as she read it. "Sir, we're getting calls from human colonies all over the galaxy. They all saw the broadcast. They all want to know what we're going to do." Alex wiped his eyes and stood straighter. "Tell them we're going to do what humans do best. We're going to make them pay." On Earth, President Walsh watched the same broadcast from his underground bunker. His advisors sat around him in terrible silence. The images kept replaying on every screen. Innocent people dying for no reason except to make a point. Walsh's secure phone rang. It was Admiral Bennett calling from the secret fleet base. "Mr. President, my crews are asking for orders. They want to fight now." "What about the plan?" Walsh asked. "Sir, with respect, the plan just changed. They killed civilians. They executed innocent people on live television. We can't wait anymore." Walsh looked around the room. General Pete Morgan was already pulling up tactical displays. Dr. Helen Carter was checking her weapon systems. Everyone was ready. "Pete, are we ready for Operation Retribution?" Walsh asked. Pete nodded grimly. "All ships are in position. All weapons are armed. We can begin in 30 minutes. Walsh took a deep breath. He thought about George Baker and the others who died in the park. They had trusted their government to protect them. He had failed them, but he wouldn't fail the rest of humanity. "Give the order," Walsh said. "Operation Retribution is a go." Across human space, hidden transmitters began sending coded signals. Ships that had been pretending to flee suddenly changed course. Weapons platforms that looked like mining equipment came online. The greatest deception in galactic history was about to be revealed. Captain Nina Scott received the activation codes aboard her ship Defiance. Her crew had been waiting for this moment for days. Around them, 50 council ships floated in space thinking they were guarding empty colonies. "All hands, this is the captain," Nina announced over the ship's communication system. "Operation Retribution has begun. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you murder innocent humans." Nina's weapons officer, Mike Johnson, brought the Nightfall systems online. "Captain, all quantum disruptors are charged and ready. Target the council flagship first," Nina ordered. "I want them to know exactly who's killing them." The Defiance dropped its disguise as a refugee ship. Weapon ports opened along its hull. Advanced targeting systems locked onto every council vessel in range. The ship that had been pretending to run away was actually one of humanity's most powerful warships. On the council flagship Eternal Glory, Veltar was still celebrating his victory on Earth. He stood on the bridge, talking to other council commanders about how easy it had been to break human resistance. "They are weaker than we thought," Veltar said. "A few dead protesters and the rest will fall in line." His tactical officer suddenly looked up from his station. "Sir, I'm reading unusual energy signatures from that refugee ship." "What kind of signatures?" Veltar asked. Before the officer could answer, space lit up around them. The first Nightfall weapon fired, and the quantum disruptor beam tore through a council destroyer like it was made of paper. The ship simply came apart at the molecular level. Veltar stared in shock as more beams lanced out from the Defiance. 3 more council ships died in seconds. "That's impossible. Refugee ships don't have weapons." All across the galaxy, the same scene played out. Ships the council thought were fleeing refugees suddenly revealed themselves as human warships. Hidden weapon platforms opened fire from asteroids and moons. The council's scattered fleets found themselves under Attack from enemies they thought were helpless. Admiral Roy Bennett led the main attack from his flagship Terra's Wrath. The ship had been hiding in the asteroid belt, disguised as a mining station. Now it emerged with the full might of the human fleet behind it. Bennett opened a communication channel to every council ship in the solar system. His voice was cold as winter. "This is Admiral Bennett of the Terran Space Navy. You wanted to see what happens when humanity stops playing nice. Consider this your education." The Terra's Wrath fired its main guns and a council battlecruiser exploded in a ball of fire. The human fleet spread out in perfect formation, their tactics precise and deadly. Every shot counted. Every move was calculated. The council ships tried to fight back, but they were confused and scattered. They had been expecting to guard empty colonies and chase fleeing refugees. Instead, they found themselves fighting for their lives against an enemy that had been preparing for this moment. Dr. Helen Carter watched the battle from her control center on Mars. Her Nightfall weapons were performing perfectly. Each quantum disruptor could destroy a ship in seconds. The Council had never seen technology like this before. "Doctor, we're getting reports from all sectors," her assistant Rick Davis said. "The Council fleets are in full retreat." "They're trying to regroup," Helen smiled coldly. "Let them try. They're about to learn that humans don't just fight hard. We fight smart." General Pete Morgan coordinated the attack from Earth. His screens showed battles raging across dozens of star systems. Everywhere the story was the same. The Council had been caught completely off guard. "Sir, we're intercepting Council communications," Colonel Barry Stone reported. "They're calling for reinforcements from their home worlds." "How long until those reinforcements arrive?" Pete asked. "About 6 hours, sir," Pete nodded. "That's more than enough time. By the time their reinforcements get here, there won't be any Council ships left to rescue." The first phase of humanity's revenge was going perfectly. The Council had made the mistake of thinking humans were weak and afraid. They were about to learn the difference between patience and weakness, and this was only the beginning. The galaxy had never seen anything like what humanity unleashed in the following days. This wasn't just a battle. It was a demonstration of what happened when a species known for mercy decided to stop showing it. Colonel Rick Davis led the first lightning strike on the Council's main supply base. His team called themselves the Ghost Squadron because they hit targets that should have been impossible to reach. While the Council was trying to figure out what had happened to their scattered fleets, Rick was already destroying their ability to fight back. The supply base was on Kepler Station, a massive facility that fed resources to Council fleets across 3 sectors. It was supposed to be impregnable. The Council had put their best defenses around it. Rick's ship Nighthawk slipped through the defense grid like smoke. Human stealth technology was years ahead of anything the Council had seen. They were still using sensors designed to detect ships that wanted to be found. "Target identified," said Lieutenant Tom Baker, Rick's weapons officer. "Main fuel depot is dead ahead." "Light it up," Rick ordered. The Nighthawk fired a single quantum torpedo. The explosion chain reacted through the entire fuel storage system. Within minutes, the station that supplied hundreds of Council ships was a burning wreck floating in space. But Rick wasn't done. "Set course for the ammunition depot on Sigma Base. If they want to fight us, let's make sure they can't." This was the new human way of war. While other species fought with honor codes and formal rules, humans fought to win. They hit supply lines, communication centers, and repair facilities. They turned war into a science. Captain Sharon Wells proved this when her destroyer Vengeance was surrounded by 6 Council ships. Any other species would have tried to negotiate or surrender. Sharon had different ideas. "All hands prepare for ramming speed," she announced over the ship's intercom. Her first officer, Commander Dave Thompson, stared at her. "Captain, that's suicide." "No," Sharon said calmly. "That's war." The Council ships were trying to capture the Vengeance intact. They wanted to study human technology. Sharon had no intention of letting that happen. She aimed her ship directly at the Council battle station Iron Fist and pushed the engines to maximum. The Vengeance slammed into the station at nearly light speed. The explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. The station, which housed 10,000 Council troops, was completely destroyed. So was Sharon's ship, but her final message echoed across human space. "Tell them we were never meant to kneel." Those words became a battle cry. Human crews painted them on their ships. Soldiers carved them into their weapons. The Council had wanted to break human spirit. Instead, they had created something harder than steel. The tide of war turned completely when Colonel Barry Stone led a special mission to capture the Council's central communication hub. The facility was hidden in the Vega system, protected by a fleet of warships and thought to be unreachable. Barry's team used a captured Council transport to get close. The ship looked damaged and helpless. The Council guards let it approach, thinking it was bringing prisoners or supplies. Instead, it was bringing death. Barry's team stormed the communication center in 15 minutes. They didn't just destroy it, they took control of it. Suddenly, every Council commander in the galaxy was receiving broadcasts they didn't want to see. The footage of the massacre in New York played on every Council ship, but now it was accompanied by information the Council had tried to hide. Records of other atrocities. Lists of species the Council had enslaved. Evidence of corruption that went to the very top of their government. Attention Council forces. Barry's voice came over every communication channel. This is Colonel Stone of the Terran Liberation Army. For too long, your leaders have told you that humans are the threat to galactic peace. Now you see the truth. We didn't start this war, but we're going to finish it. The broadcast reached every corner of Council space. Species that had been oppressed for centuries suddenly realized they weren't alone. The Council's own soldiers began to question orders. Some even switched sides. Dr. Helen Carter's team revealed their second major surprise during the Battle of Wolf 359. The Council had sent their largest fleet to crush the human colony there. 300 warships against what they thought was a handful of human defenders. Instead, they found themselves unable to talk to each other. Doctor, the quantum communication disruptors are working perfectly, her assistant Rick reported. The Council fleet can't coordinate at all. Helen watched the tactical display as 300 enemy ships tried to fight without being able to communicate. It was like watching a giant with its brain cut out. The ships bumped into each other, fired at their own allies, and flew in circles. Meanwhile, the human defenders moved with perfect coordination. Every ship knew exactly where every other ship was. Every attack was planned and executed flawlessly. The Council's main advantage was their numbers, Helen explained to President Walsh over a secure link. Take away their ability to coordinate those numbers and they're just targets. The Battle of Wolf 359 lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 250 Council ships were destroyed or captured. The human colony didn't lose a single ship. News of the victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had been considering rebellion suddenly found the courage to act. The hegemony slave worlds rose up in revolt. The Trade Federation's member species demanded independence. Even some Zephyrian colonies began to question their loyalty. Admiral Roy Bennett watched it all, from his command ship Terra's Wrath. The strategic display showed the Council's empire crumbling from within. Their fleets were scattered and broken. Their communication network was in chaos. Their allies were abandoning them. Sir, we're getting surrender requests from 12 Council commanders, reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Chang. What are our orders regarding prisoners? Bennett asked. Treat them according to the Geneva Conventions, Bennett replied. We're not them. We don't execute prisoners. This decision proved to be crucial. While the Council shot prisoners and enslaved defeated enemies, humans treated them with dignity. Word spread quickly through Council ranks. Surrender to humans meant life. Surrender to your own commanders often meant death for failure. More and more Council ships began switching sides or simply running away. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years was falling apart in a matter of weeks. Captain Lisa Harper led a fleet of mixed human and rebel ships to the Council's fortress world of Proxima. The planet was supposed to be unconquerable. It had planetary shields, orbital defense platforms, and a garrison of 500,000 troops. All ships, this is Admiral Harper, she announced. Yes, she had been promoted during the fighting. Target the shield generators first. Let's show them what happens when you threaten Earth. The combined fleet opened fire with everything they had. Human quantum disruptors, hegemony plasma cannons, Trade Federation missile swarms. The Council's defenses, designed to fight enemies one at a time, couldn't handle the coordinated assault. The planetary shields collapsed in 20 minutes. The orbital platforms were destroyed in 30. The garrison surrendered without firing a shot. But the most important victory came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Jake Morrison, who had spent the war coordinating with rebel species, received a message that changed everything. Jake, you need to see this, his aide Marcus told him. It's from the Zephyrian homeworld. The message was from a group of Zephyrian military commanders. They were tired of their government's corruption and brutality. They wanted to make a deal. "We will remove Veltar and his followers from power," the message said. "In exchange, we ask for peace and the chance to rebuild our society. The war has gone on long enough." Jake immediately forwarded the message to President Walsh. Within hours, secret negotiations had begun. The Zephyrian military was ready to end the war. All they needed was human agreement to spare their people. President Walsh's answer was simple. "We didn't start this war to conquer anyone. We started it to protect ourselves. End your government's aggression and we'll end ours." The galaxy was about to change forever. The Council's empire was broken. Their fleets were scattered. Their allies had abandoned them, and humanity had proven that sometimes the only answer to tyranny was overwhelming force applied with precision and determination. The war was almost over, but the new galaxy that would emerge from it was just beginning. 6 months after the Council's ultimatum, the war was over, but it didn't end on a battlefield. It ended in the same crystal chamber where the Council had once plotted humanity's downfall. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood where Veltar had once sat. The former Council leader was in prison, awaiting trial for war crimes. The other Council members who had supported the genocide were either dead or captured. The galaxy had a new voice now. "The Galactic Council is dissolved," Jake announced to representatives from over 200 worlds. "In its place, we establish the Galactic Alliance based on equality and mutual respect." The chamber that had once echoed with arrogant demands now heard something different. Species that had been oppressed for centuries were free to speak. Worlds that had been enslaved were now independent. The old order was dead. President Connor Walsh watched the ceremony from Earth. His planet was no longer under threat. Human colonies were safe. The underground cities had become symbols of human determination, and many were being converted into research centers and universities. "Mr. President," his aide said, "we're getting requests from 43 species asking to join the Alliance." Walsh smiled. "Tell them we welcome anyone who believes in freedom and equality. That's what we fought for." The transformation hadn't been easy. When the Council's empire collapsed, some worlds tried to create their own empires. Human fleets had to intervene several times to protect smaller species from would-be conquerors. But each time they withdrew once peace was restored. Humans had learned the lesson of power. They used it to protect, not to rule. Admiral Roy Bennett took command of the new Alliance Defense Force. Ships from dozens of worlds served under human officers, not because humans demanded it, but because other species trusted them. The fleet that had once fought for survival now fought for justice. "Admiral," Captain Danny Brooks reported from his ship Silent Thunder, "we're getting distress calls from the Outer Rim. A group of Zephyrian warlords is trying to restart the Empire." Bennett looked at his tactical display. Some Zephyrians hadn't accepted their new reality. They thought they could rebuild their old power through force. "Take the Third Fleet and remind them why that's a bad idea," Bennett ordered. "But Danny, remember the rules. We protect the innocent. We don't punish entire species for the crimes of their leaders." This was the new human way, power used responsibly, force applied only when necessary. The galaxy was learning that humans could be as merciful in victory as they were terrible in war. Dr. Helen Carter had become the Alliance's chief technology officer. Her quantum research was now being shared with member species. The weapons that had won the war were being converted into tools for peace. "Doctor, the new quantum communication network is online," her assistant Rick reported. "Every Alliance world can now talk to every other world instantly." Helen nodded. "Good. Communication prevents misunderstandings. Misunderstandings lead to wars." The network that had once coordinated humanity's revenge now connected hundreds of worlds in friendship. Species that had never met before were sharing knowledge and culture. The galaxy was becoming smaller and more unified every day. Colonel Barry Stone had become head of Alliance Intelligence. His job wasn't to spy on potential enemies, but to prevent conflicts before they started. The same skills that had won battles were now being used to win peace. "Sir, we're seeing some tension between the hegemony and the Trade Federation," his analyst reported. "Send mediators immediately," Barry ordered. "And make sure they're from neutral species. Both sides need to see that we're not taking sides." This was how the Alliance worked. Problems were solved through negotiation, not force. When force was necessary, It was used to protect the weak, not to impose the will of the strong. Captain Lisa Harper had been promoted to admiral and given command of the exploration fleet. Her ship Aurora's Dawn now led expeditions beyond the galaxy's edge. The same curiosity that had made humans expand so quickly was now being used to explore the unknown. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from outside the galaxy," her communications officer reported. Lisa frowned. "From where?" "The Andromeda Galaxy, ma'am. It appears to be a threat of some kind." Lisa looked at the message as it appeared on her screen. Another empire from another galaxy was making demands. They called themselves the Dominion, and they wanted the Milky Way to surrender or face destruction. Lisa's response was immediate and simple. "Send a message back. Tell them the galaxy is protected by the Alliance. Tell them we tried diplomacy once before, and when that failed, we had to be more direct. Ask them if they really want to find out what more direct means." The message was sent. Within hours, the response came back. The Dominion had done research on the Alliance. They had learned about the Council War. They were withdrawing their demands and offering trade negotiations instead. Lisa smiled. Sometimes reputation is the best weapon. Back on Earth, the memorial to the New York victims had become a pilgrimage site. People from across the galaxy came to pay their respects to George Baker and the others who had died. Their sacrifice had sparked the revolution that freed the galaxy. President Walsh visited the memorial regularly. Today, he was joined by representatives from the former Council worlds. Many of them were Zephyrians who wanted to apologize for their government's crimes. "Mr. President," said Admiral Keltar, a Zephyrian who had helped overthrow Veltar, "our people are ashamed of what was done here. We want to make amends." Walsh looked at the names carved in black marble, 37 innocent people who had died for wanting to remain free. "The best way to honor them is to make sure it never happens again. Help us build a galaxy where all species are free." The Zephyrian admiral nodded. "We pledge our lives to that cause." This was perhaps the greatest victory of all. The species that had started the war were now among the Alliance's strongest supporters. They had learned the difference between strength and bullying, between leadership and oppression. Amy Phillips, the former colonial governor, now ran the Alliance's refugee resettlement program. Millions of people displaced by the war needed new homes. The underground cities that had hidden human civilians were now sheltering refugees from across the galaxy. "Amy, we have a problem," her aide Marcus said. "The Kepler refugees don't want to live near the Vegan refugees." "Old ethnic tensions," Amy sighed. "Set up a meeting between their leaders. We'll work it out. We've got humans, Zephyrians, and hegemony species all living in the same cities now. If we can do that, we can handle any problem." And they did handle it. The Alliance had learned that diversity was strength, not weakness. The galaxy was becoming a place where anyone could find a home. 5 years after the war, Captain Nina Scott took the Defiance on a ceremonial voyage to every major battle site. At each location, she placed a memorial beacon. The beacons broadcast a simple message in every galactic language. Here fell tyrants and heroes. Here died those who oppressed and those who resisted. Here the galaxy learned that freedom is worth any price, and that those who threaten the innocent do so at their own peril. The final beacon was placed at Earth itself, in orbit above New York. The message there was different. It was the last words Sharon Wells had spoken before ramming her ship into the enemy station. "Tell them we were never meant to kneel." President Walsh, now in his second term, received regular reports from across the galaxy. Trade was booming. Scientific research was advancing faster than ever. Wars between Alliance members had become almost unknown. "Mr. President," his aide said, "you have a call from the exploration fleet. They found something interesting." Walsh took the call. Admiral Harper appeared on his screen, her face excited. "Connor, you need to see this. We found signs of another galaxy-spanning civilization. They're peaceful and they want to establish contact." Walsh smiled. "Set up the meeting. But remember the protocol." "Yes, sir. Diplomacy first, but be ready for anything." The galaxy had learned humanity's greatest lesson. Peace was preferable to war, but sometimes war was the only way to achieve peace. The strong had a duty to protect the weak, and anyone who threatened innocent people would face the full wrath of those who had chosen to stand guard. The Council had crossed the line when they murdered innocent protesters. They had learned too late that humanity's patience had limits. Now the galaxy was safer because of that lesson. And in the depths of space, Human ships continued their eternal watch, ready to defend the freedom they had won with blood and sacrifice. The galaxy was at peace, but it was a peace protected by those who understood the true cost of freedom. The age of tyrants was over. The age of the Alliance had begun.